وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ.
Okay, As-Salamu alaykum wa Rahmatullahi Wa-Barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. It gives me a great pleasure to talk to the youth, yourself, who are the future of this religion, the future to carry the message of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It gives me a great pleasure to talk to the youngsters about some of the lessons from the Quran, the Sunnah, from the Sahaba, especially to do with the searching for the truth and seeking of the knowledge. So, who would be better for us to start talking about the youth and the search for the knowledge and the truth than to talk about one of the greatest scholars in the history of Islam? And that, of course, was Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. As we know, the Sahabi, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he is the one to whom the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed that Allahumma faqihhu fi ddin wa'allimhu at-ta'wil. O Allah, give him the understanding of the religion, and Allahumma faqihhu fi ddin, give him the understanding of the religion, wa'allimhu at-ta'wil, and teach him the explanation, the interpretation of the religion. As a result, what's actually interesting is when the Prophet ﷺ said this to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu would have been about the age of our young brother over here. How old are you? 14. Do you know Abdullah ibn Abbas at that time was even younger than you? Right? So Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu was born just before the migration by a couple of years. And he died, when the Prophet ﷺ died, he was in his early teens, about 13 years old. So he was even younger than you when the Prophet ﷺ prayed this for Abdullah ibn Abbas. So Abdullah ibn Abbas, the Prophet prays to him, O Allah, give him the understanding of the religion and teach him the interpretation. Thereafter, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu went on to seek the knowledge of the religion of Allah, especially of the Quran, such that before his death, he became one of the greatest scholars of Islam of all time, to the extent he's known as the Habrul Ummah. Like the Habr is the major scholar of this Ummah. And he's known also as the main scholar, one of the main scholars, or the father of the knowledge of tafsir, of the Quran, the tafsir of the Quran. At the time that the Prophet ﷺ prayed for him, he was less than 13 years old. And can you imagine when you are that young and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ prays for you, how will you feel? It will really excite you, isn't it? My God, the Messenger of Allah is praying for me, that Allah teaches me the understanding of the religion and interpretation of the Quran. So let's then trace the path of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu to how he, as that young youth, how he searched for the knowledge of Islam until he reached the heights of greatness that he did. Abdullah ibn Abbas died at the age of 68. At the age of 68. And before he died, towards the end, he was, as I said, one of the greatest scholars. But even till this day, if you read a book of tafsir, you cannot go by without coming across a saying of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, or one of his leading students such as Ikrimah or Mujahid and these other students of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. What was one of the most striking things about Abdullah ibn Abbas as a youth? Can you imagine? He was only about 13 by the time the Prophet ﷺ died. But after the Prophet ﷺ there was a beautiful incident that happened that is one of the most inspiring incidents for all of us to seek the knowledge of Allah's religion and to constantly keep it up and not give it up. And that incident was Abdullah ibn Abbas. After the Prophet ﷺ, there were great big Sahaba such as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. He was the Khalifa for about 2 years after the Prophet ﷺ. Then there were the next big Sahabi, Umar radiallahu anhu, became the next leader of the Muslims. Then Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu became the next leader of the Muslims. By the time Uthman radiallahu anhu died, he was 82 years old. 82 years old. And yet Abdullah ibn Abbas was a youngster. So you can imagine at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu and Uthman radiallahu anhu and before Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Abbas was still a teenager at the time of Abu Bakr and Uthman. So Abdullah ibn Abbas used to go to seek the knowledge of Allah's religion even more from some of the older Sahaba. After the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah ibn Abbas continued to seek the knowledge from the older Sahaba. And he used to continue to develop himself and not give in. Continue to develop, seek the knowledge to become the scholar of Islam and to teach the knowledge of Islam. At that time, there was a companion of Abdullah ibn Abbas, another youth, another young companion of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. When they both used to go together to seek the knowledge, spread the knowledge. The companion of Abdullah ibn Abbas said to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, why should we bother seeking all of this knowledge? Look, all the big Sahaba are there. The people are going to go to them to ask them and learn about the religion. Who's going to come to you or me? They're just little kids. Let's say late teenagers. So he said, the big Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman radiallahu anhum, Ali radiallahu anhu, they're there. Why bother seeking knowledge? Because, we are just little. Who's going to come to you? Come on. So the friend of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he stopped seeking the knowledge after that. He stopped his pursuit of the truth and the knowledge after that. But Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu carried on. Carried on. And why did he carry on? Because, obviously seeking knowledge is for Allah and we should be doing it all our lives. But look at how Allah rewarded Abdullah ibn Abbas for the knowledge that he sought. So when Abdullah ibn Abbas carried on seeking the knowledge, what happened was at that time, the Khulafa al-Rashidun were the big scholars. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu were the big scholars. Abdullah ibn Abbas was just a kid, like Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. But later on as decades passed by, all the Sahaba started dying and passing away. And Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu started getting older and started to become a senior scholar until he became one of the greatest scholars of the Muslim world. Can you see that had he stopped before, had he given up and stopped before seeking knowledge, then later on he would have been forgotten. But because he continued, he went on to become one of the greatest scholars when the existing great scholars had died. So the point from this, my dear brothers and sisters, the point from this is seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion, i.e. seeking the truth. It is a great thing for which there's a lot of reward, as we will see shortly. It's something where you should never give it up. Even if you see great big scholars are in the time with you, you see, my God, there's this big scholar, another big scholar, another big scholar. Who am I? Why should I bother seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion? Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't give up. Carry on seeking the knowledge. Because one day, Allah might promote you to a level where you might be guiding so many people and you might be amassing your reward for paradise. So don't give up. To give you an example, the reward that is there for seeking the knowledge of the religion of Allah, The reward for that, one of the hadith, authentic hadith that has come in different wording, one of the wording of that hadith is the following one. And this hadith, when I was studying in the Islamic University of Medina, and I grew up in Melbourne. How many people know Melbourne? Has anybody been to Melbourne here in Australia? Nobody been to Melbourne. One person's been to Melbourne. Melbourne is a cold city. In winter, Melbourne can get very cold. In summer, it gets a little bit warm, a bit hot, but not too much. I went from the cold city of Melbourne to the extremely hot city of Medina. And you can imagine how hard it was to seek the knowledge of Allah's religion there. I would be living for some time. I was there in the 8th building. The student housing was inside the university. I was living in the 8th one. And number 8 is the furthest one from the mosque and where the classrooms are. And from there, when it's time for the prayer, I would need to walk for Dhuhr prayer in the intense heat of Medina summer. And coming from Melbourne and the cold weather that goes down to 0 degrees, you can imagine what a torture it was to walk to the masjid. And when I would walk to the masjid, my head would literally be so hot, I would get headaches from that. Just going to the prayer, I would get a headache from the extreme heat. But you see, in that time, there were a lot of other of my colleagues who came from Australia and America and England, who we were used to the comfortable life in those countries. Number of the colleagues, they gave up seeking the knowledge and they went back to their countries. And today, you don't even hear of them and so on. But there were other colleagues of mine who put up with that intense heat and they continued seeking the knowledge. And today, there are people around the world who are teaching other people the knowledge of Allah's religion. And I hope you can see that persisting in seeking the truth, the searching the truth and the knowledge helps us to go so far, doesn't it? Back then, myself and my friends, we were all, 20, 21, 22 years old. But now, you can see the big great beards that we've all got, right? So now we can spread so much knowledge. But what is the reason, what drove me? In those days when the headache would almost kill me, not literally, but the headache would almost kill me going to the masjid, there was one hadith that would drive me and keep me going and not quitting. What was that one hadith? The Prophet ﷺ says, he says, "Inna man fis samawati." Woman, or in some narrations the inna is not there. He said, the Prophet says, "Man fis samawati, inna man fis samawati wa man fil ard." And in some other narration, "Inna ahla samawati wa ahla al-ard." So the Prophet says that the people of the heavens and the people of the earth, hatta al-hitanu fi jawfi al-bahr, even to the extent of the fish or a whale in the stomach of the ocean, meaning in the depths of the ocean. So the Prophet says, all the beings in the skies and all the living beings on earth and even the fish in the depths of the ocean, لَيُصَلُّونَ عَلَى مُعَلِّمِ النَّاسِ خَيْرًا. They all pray for the one who's teaching people the good. Of course, the good of the religion. In another narration, it says, لَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. They ask for forgiveness. Reflect on this hadith, brothers and sisters. This hadith is saying that the one who teaches the knowledge, the beneficial, the knowledge of Allah's religion is good. The knowledge of Allah's religion, it brings good to everybody. So the one who teaches the knowledge of Allah's religion, everybody in the skies, everybody on the earth, and even the fish in the depths of the ocean, they pray for them. They pray for them. And in the other narration, pray for forgiveness. Can you imagine, wallahi, brothers and sisters, wallahi, imagine. As I always say, just, consider, I'm also a dentist. Inside our own mouth, we have more than 1 million microorganisms and bacteria. Inside our mouth, we have so many bacteria. You're going to say, ooh, I'm going to just, wash my mouth with a lot of soap and get rid of all the bacteria from my mouth. But of course, this is the good bacteria, right? So inside our mouth, we've got so many millions of bacteria. Imagine on the rest around us how many bacteria are there. Every one of these are praying for forgiveness or good for the one who's teaching the good of the knowledge of Allah's religion. Can you imagine that? Wallahi, brothers and sisters, this is the hadith that would drive me through the intense heat of Medina to keep seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion. And as you know, Medina gets very cold in winter as well. So the point is, before you can teach people, we have to learn. This is what every one of you is doing being here, to learn the knowledge of Allah's religion. So don't give up seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion. Like Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, at the young age, keep seeking the knowledge, keep seeking the knowledge, until a day may come where you will be teaching other people and get this incredible reward where billions and trillions of living creatures are praying for you. Now, let me ask you, why are the creatures praying for you and me? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Why are all these creatures praying for the people who are teaching the good of Allah's religion? Why? Why don't they pray for the guy who invented the iPhone? Why don't they pray for the guy who invented the Galaxy Note 3? That's the phone I've got. It's a lovely phone. Why don't they pray for all these people? Why do they pray instead for the one who's teaching the good of Allah's religion? The answer to that, there are many answers. There are many answers. One of the answers is in the next verse from the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah says, if only the people of the township, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا. If only the people of the township would believe and have taqwa, piety. What will happen if only the people of the township believed and had taqwa? لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah says, we will open for them the blessings from the sky and the earth. Blessings from the sky and the earth. Blessings from the sky, like rainfall, which helps to grow the vegetation and gives your country a good economy. Blessings from the sky, like sunlight, which helps to again bring vegetation and good economy. Then what are the blessings from the earth? Blessings from the earth, natural resources, oil. Can you imagine what a difference oil will make to your country? What other natural resources? Coal and other iron ore, diamonds, gold, etc. So Allah says, how do you become wealthy? By Iman and Taqwa. Who teaches people Iman and Taqwa? The people who are teaching the knowledge of Allah's religion. And how can you teach the people the knowledge of Allah's religion? It begins with the search for the truth and the knowledge. And that's what we're talking about today. So I hope you see, my dear brothers and sisters, wallahi, I cannot emphasize enough that we're living in a society today where the computer games are so exciting, and people I even heard that there was a guy who had like a record, like 2 days straight, non-stop playing a computer game. You can do that and have fun for 2 days until you drop dead. But on the other hand, you can play a computer game for an hour, and the rest of the time you can do good deeds. And one of the best good deed is to seek the knowledge of Allah's religion. So I hope we all appreciate the importance of seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion. Moving on, I hope we realize by now the reward for seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion, and also the reward for seeking the knowledge, and also what is the benefit of seeking the knowledge. The benefit of seeking the knowledge helps us to have blessings from above and below. Blessings of natural resources like minerals and that, and blessings even in your family, blessings even in your relationships. So for example, today, as you know, brothers and sisters, so many people are having divorce, isn't it? So many people, like one of the things I've tried to do over the last few years is to try to go more into marriage, family therapy and so on. I mean, counseling kind of thing. Why? Because so many people today are breaking up in divorces. Whereas marriage is the foundation of the society because it prepares the kids who are the future citizens of your country and the Ummah. And if the husband and wife are broken up in a divorce, then the kids will grow up, probably, possibly, with a divorced family, and they will not get the love, the care and everything of the mom and dad. So even the blessings in your family comes from seeking, amongst other things, one of the things that brings blessings in the family is from having iman and piety, which brings the barakat min as-sama'i wal ard. An example, one of the greatest scholars of Islam of all time was Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. If you know my name in 10 years time, you will know this saying to be one that I always repeat all the time. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah was one of the greatest scholars of Islam. One of the four Imams of fiqh, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik ibn Anas, Imam al-Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahumullah, to all of them. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was a poor man. He was a poor man, like Imam al-Shafi'i was. So Imam Ahmad traveled a lot seeking knowledge. He would travel, to all the cities of the Muslim world to collect the hadith and knowledge. And as a result, one of the biggest collection of hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is Musnad of Imam Ahmad. One of the biggest collection of hadith. To the extent that Imam Ahmad said, if you hear of a hadith and you don't find the basis of it, the asl of it in this book, then know that it does not exist. Meaning he put so much effort. And Imam Ahmad was a student of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah as well. So he learned from the best of the scholars of that day. And Imam Ahmad spent the time traveling everywhere such that he combined between being one of the greats of the knowledge of hadith and one of the knowledge of fiqh as well. Because he's one of the great scholars of hadith and he's one of the great scholars of fiqh. So this man, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, look at his pursuit for the truth and the knowledge of Allah's religion. He did not marry until the age of 40. He did not marry until the age of 40. Why? Because he was busy traveling and seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion. And because of traveling and seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion, he could not have stayed in one place to have an income and look after his wife and children. Because it's important for us, if we have a wife and children or husband, it's important for us to fulfill our rights towards them. That's our duty as a husband or a wife. So then, that's what Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he couldn't do it while he was traveling, seeking the knowledge. So then what did he do? He did not marry until he became 40 years old. Many amongst us today, when we are 18, 17, 16, we say, Mom, Dad, I need to get married. And by the time we're about 20, 22, we are insisting, Dad, I need to get married. Mom, I need to get married. But you see, brothers and sisters, it's good to marry young. Wallah, it's good to marry young. But if Allah doesn't give you money to get married or the means to get married, it's good to have sabr as well. Because this whole life is about patience and sabr. So then, Imam Ahmad had patience for the sake of seeking the knowledge as a youth. And he did not marry when he was a youth because he was seeking the knowledge of the Quran, the Hadith, etc. When he married at the age of 40, Imam Ahmad said, I did not marry until I was 40. And then when I married at the age of 40, my wife was with me for 20 years after that. Because his wife died after that. He said, Imam Ahmad had this wife who died, but he had other wife as well before and after. So Imam Ahmad said, for 20 years I was married, and he said, we did not differ or disagree in anything for those 20 years. They did not fight, they did not disagree, they did not have differences. Just reflect on this, brothers and sisters. Why is that the case? Because what we understand is it's the barakah. It's the barakah of the taqwa that the scholars had, like Imam Ahmad. Because of their barakah, Allah gave them a great marriage. Whereas those amongst us maybe who don't have that much barakah, we end up in divorce, fighting with our wife, fighting with our husband. So the point here is, like that verse that I mentioned before, if only the people of township had iman and taqwa, Allah says we would open for them blessings from above and beneath. So that's the point that I'm mentioning here, that the benefit of seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion is you can encourage people to have taqwa. And when you encourage people to have taqwa, then the blessings come from above and below. When the rainfall comes, the sunlight comes and the blessing comes, that is what helps the vegetation. That's what helps the animals. And no wonder every living being in the skies and the earth prays for the one who's teaching the good of Allah's religion. Do you see the point, my dear brothers and sisters? Why did the Prophet say that everybody in the heavens and the earth pray for the one who's teaching the good of Allah's religion? Because it's through their teachings that the blessings and everything good comes. So let's move on from this point. And I want to mention two more points related to that. I've been told to talk until 9:45. I can sit and talk for hours. But because I've been told to talk until 9:45, I thought I'll talk until 9:45. But I just remembered that another brother told me, talk for 20 minutes and then stop. I think I've got a bad reputation for talking too long. So I'll just quickly mention one or two other points and then I'll stop for question and answers, inshallah. Because, I forgot that I was told to talk for 20 minutes. So I'll just quickly make it short, inshallah. The next point I'd like to mention is, seeking knowledge is important, especially for the youth. However, one of the most important things, brothers and sisters, is we should seek knowledge from the scholars. We should seek knowledge from the scholars. It's good to open a book and read. That's good. Wallah, that's good. But also, the foundations of the knowledge, we must acquire it from a scholar. Then, after the foundations are acquired, we can then expand as much as we want reading ourselves. But why is it important to acquire the knowledge from the qualified scholars? When I say qualified, I'm not saying this university, that university, or anything. Basically, I'm talking about a properly trained scholar. Why is that so important, to seek knowledge from a scholar? Many reasons. I'll mention one or two of them. One of the reasons it's important to seek knowledge from a scholar is just, is that, you see, when I'm seeking the knowledge in the beginning, I might read a hadith and the hadith might say, as an example, the Prophet mentions that, in a hadith, the Prophet mentions that a Sahabi asked the Prophet, meaning about the eating of the meat of camel, eating camel meat. Is that, do you need to do wudu or not? I might read that hadith. And then I might realize after that, oh, okay, you must do wudu after camel meat. But then I've only read one hadith. There might be another hadith that I haven't read. And that other hadith might be a hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu, where he says that, كَانَ آخِرُ الْأَمْرَيْنِ عَلَى عَهْدِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ تَرْكُ الْوُضُوءِ مِمَّا مَسَتْهُ النَّارِ. The last of the two matters, in the last of the two affairs in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, at the time of his death, was not to do wudu with anything that the fire touched. Meaning this hadith is giving you indication that you don't do wudu when you eat camel meat. Whereas the first hadith is giving you indication that you do wudu when you eat camel meat. Both are authentic hadith. Now if you don't learn from a scholar in the beginning, you look at those two hadith and you sit there bewildered. Oh my God, what do I do now? They're both authentic hadith. What do I do? Some scholars said this is authentic, some said this is authentic. Oh my God, the scholars disagreed about authenticity. So then we sit there bewildered, what do I do? But if we're seeking the knowledge from a scholar, then that sheikh who's teaching, and I think in Malaysia, in Singapore, the sheikh you call ustad, right? Yeah. So that ustad who's teaching, or the sheikh who's teaching, or whatever you call the scholar, they are able to say that, okay, when there are two hadith like that, you see, are they both authentic? If the authenticity is doubtful, you might see which one is more authentic or not. Another thing you might say is one of them abrogated? But if the abrogating hadith itself is not authentic, then you can't take that one. So, these are things that are there of usul al-fiqh and authenticity and so on. So then the scholars might say, okay, one of them is am, one is khas, one is general, one is specific. You see, these are all scholarly matters that we need to learn from the scholars. So that's the reason it's good to start. The scholars said, for example, like Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh is one of the great scholars today. Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh said that, in the beginning of your seeking knowledge, you should seek knowledge from the scholars. This is what Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, said, one of the great scholars of today as well. This is what Sheikh Shanqiti, rahimahullah, said, one of the great scholars of today as well. I heard from all three of them myself, read or heard from all three of them, and many other scholars as well. Another reason why it's important to seek the knowledge from the scholars is when you learn from the scholars, maybe I might understand something differently. And then when I speak to the scholar, I can discuss with the scholar. I can say, hey Sheikh, I can say, excuse me Sheikh, this is what you said, but this is what I understood. Could you maybe shed some light onto why it's like that and not like that? So you mention your understanding and then you can discuss it together. Another reason for learning from the scholars is the Prophet says in an authentic hadith, he says, Inna Allah la there are a number of authentic hadith in Sahih Bukhari and elsewhere where the Prophet mentions that one of the signs or one of the things towards the last days before Day of Judgment is that the knowledge will be taken away. The knowledge will be taken away, or the knowledge will become less as well. So then, when the knowledge is taken away, how is the knowledge taken away? Is it that Allah takes the knowledge from the hearts of the scholars? This is what the Prophet ﷺ answers in an authentic hadith. He says, Inna Allah la yaqbidu al-ilma intiza'an min suduri nas, walakin biqabd al-ulama. The Prophet ﷺ says, Allah does not remove the knowledge from the hearts or the chests of the scholars, or of the people, but by taking away the scholars, meaning by the death of the scholars. And then the Prophet says, Hatta idha lam yubqi aliman, until when there are no more alim, scholars, ittakhadha nasu ru'usan juhala. People start taking leaders who are ignorant. فَسُئِلُوا فَأَفْتَوْا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. They ask those people and they give fatwa without knowledge. فَضَلُّوا وَأَضَلُّوا. They go astray themselves and they take others astray. What do we learn from this hadith, brothers and sisters? A number of things. One of the things we learn from this hadith is that there are scholars and there are others who are not scholars. Correct? So we learn that there are scholars and not scholars. The reason I'm mentioning it is, once when I advised one of the brothers that, look, don't go and start giving verdicts by yourself, seek knowledge from the scholars, the brother said to me, look, give me a daleel, give me an evidence in the Quran and the Hadith where it says that there are scholars and not scholars. So I mentioned this hadith to the brother. Because the Prophet says, Hatta idha lam yubqi aliman. Until when there is no alim, no scholar, the people take as leaders ignorant people. And they ask them for fatwa and they give fatwa without knowledge. What does this tell us? Point number 2, that there are times where people might have some knowledge of Islam, but they're not properly qualified. Others make them leaders and they ask them for fatwa and they give wrong fatwa without knowledge. So the point is, if we haven't sought the knowledge, we should not be giving opinions and fatwa to the people. Giving fatwa is giving a verdict about religion. This is halal, this is haram. If we are not seeking, if we haven't sought the knowledge properly and trained properly, then don't give fatwa to the people right, left and center, because then you will go astray and take others astray with you as well. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ shows the difference between the scholars and the rest of us. The Prophet ﷺ says in this other hadith, which is, a number of scholars says is authentic, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ كَفَضْلِي عَلَى أَدْنَاكُمْ. The Prophet ﷺ said that this fadl, do you have the word fadl in Malay language? In Urdu, in Arabic is fadl. In Urdu we say fazl. Do you have that word in Malay? No, no fadl, right? Okay, fadl is the grace or superiority or merits. So the Prophet is saying the merits or superiority of a scholar, fadlul alimi ala al-abid, the superiority of a scholar compared to a worshipper. Who's a worshipper and who's a scholar? Worshipper is somebody who prays to Allah and does, prays, does extra prayer. Fast, does extra fast. Does extra ibadah. So an abid is very good. Wallahi, if I could be an abid in my life, at least, and go to paradise, I'll be happy. So being an abid is very, very good. But the Prophet ﷺ says, compared to a worshipper abid, a scholar, on the other hand, fadlul alimi ala al-abid ka fadli ala adnakum. The difference in superiority of a scholar to a worshipper is like the difference between me. Is like the difference in superiority or grace, this difference in superiority or merits of mine compared to the least amongst you. So the Prophet is saying the difference between the Prophet of Allah and the least of the Sahaba, that difference between the Prophet of Allah and the least of the Sahaba is the difference between the scholar and a great worshipper. What this tells us again, my dear brothers, is that we need to respect the scholars and learn from them. But it doesn't just tell us that, it also tells us that as a youth like Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, we need to pursue the knowledge, pursue the knowledge, pursue the knowledge. Keep seeking the truth like these great people from before. Seek the truth from the scholars and keep on going, keep on going. Seeking knowledge doesn't hurt anybody. As long as you seek it from proper scholars, you won't go extremes, etc. You seek the knowledge, you benefit yourself, you benefit others, you benefit even the animals, and you bring down the blessings of Allah upon the earth, and your marriage will be good, inshallah, your kids' relationship will be good, inshallah, and you can benefit the ummah and bring the ummah from darknesses into light. Can you imagine how much benefit there is? And then your status, if you reach that stage, your status will be as the difference between the Prophet ﷺ and the least of the Sahaba. And every being in the heavens and the earth will be praying for you. So I hope we've seen the importance of seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion. I want to finish off with one last example to inspire us to seek the knowledge of Allah's religion. And that is an example of one of the great scholars who I've been blessed to learn from him, at least for a few months. This scholar, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, was one of the greatest scholars in the world of our time today. He died about 10 to 15 years ago. He died about 10 to 15 years ago. One of the greatest scholars in the world today. He lived in the city of Unayza, in the middle of Saudi Arabia, in the desert city of Unayza. At the time Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen died, he was regarded as one of the greatest scholars in the world, and some people regarded him as the greatest scholar, and others as one of the greatest scholars in the world. People respected him all over the world, and wallahi, I saw with my own eyes that people loved him so much that when Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen will be walking the streets, people would come up and they would take his hand and kiss his hand or kiss his forehead. That's how much they loved the Sheikh. And the Sheikh was so, mashallah, he could have been so wealthy. He could have been so wealthy because rich people would bring money and give it to the Sheikh. But the Sheikh, even when he became the member of the big scholars committee in Saudi Arabia, he initially, in the beginning, he still used to live in a 2-story house made out of mud. 2-story house made out of mud. This was this is a scholar of the Kibar al-Ulama, of the committee of the big scholars. And he lived in that. After that, when people insisted, then he lived in another simple double-story house because his whole extended family lived there and they needed a bigger house. And this scholar, he would be there in a simple thought. If you go to Arab countries, you can buy even silk thobe, which men shouldn't be wearing anyway. Or you could buy some of the thobe that men wear are as much as 700, 800 riyal Saudi. And the sheikh would be wearing just a simple thobe. And he would be wearing simple slippers or thongs in his feet. And he would be driving a simple car. I thought when I go, maybe I'm going to find him driving a Mercedes or a BMW. No, he drives a simple car. And when he comes to the masjid for 5 times a prayer, he walks up and back. When the sheikh died, he was 74 years old. And the last time I went to meet him and study with him, he was still about 74 years old, just before his death by a few months. And even at that time, at the age of 74, the sheikh would walk from his house to the masjid, about a 20 to 25 minute walk for each of the 5 prayers. Walk up and walk back. And just memorize and revise the Quran as he's walking up and back. Or answer the questions of the people. Anyway, this is how big Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen became as a scholar. Can you imagine today, on my own phone, which is in my pocket, I've got the apps to learn from the knowledge of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. If you go to a library, you probably wouldn't find a library in Arabic, except that there will be a book of fiqh of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, book of hadith of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, book of Arabic grammar of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, book of inheritance laws of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. This man, who died close to 15 years ago, still we are learning from him, and he's getting the reward in his grave. How did he get there? And I want to finish off with this point, because it's something that is so inspiring for a youth in their search for the knowledge. How did Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen get there? If you know Saudi Arabian people, generally a youth, they're obsessed about one thing, and that is playing soccer, football. Even in intense heat of the Arabian Peninsula, when it's close to 40 degrees, they'll be playing soccer. When I went to Medina, I couldn't believe these kids. 40-degree heat, they're playing soccer. That's how much they love it. And they don't have the grass fields. I don't know how Singapore is. This is my first visit to Singapore, to actually come inside, for a whole day. But in Australia, you have so many grass fields everywhere. You have grass, playing field. In Saudi Arabia, these kids play soccer on hot sand. And they play soccer on there when it's 30, 40-degree heat. That's how much they love it. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, when he was a kid, about your age, when he was a youth, about this age, he would leave his house, and there was the teacher of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, his name was Sheikh Ar-Rahmaan ibn Sa'di, rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of Islam at that time. And Sheikh Ar-Rahmaan ibn Sa'di was the Imam of the central mosque of the city of Unayza. So Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen would get up and he would leave the house to seek the knowledge from Sheikh Ar-Rahmaan ibn Sa'di. But the masjid of Sheikh Ar-Rahmaan ibn Sa'di was far from the house of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. So as he would walk, every day as he would walk, he would have a soccer field on the way. And all the other kids of his age will be playing soccer. And imagine how tempting it was for this little boy, this youth, to stop and play soccer like everybody else. What did he do? This story is related by a man who was back then a kid on the soccer field. This story I'm mentioning is related by a man who was on that soccer field. And he was a kid at that time. And he said, we would be watching Muhammad, meaning Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. We'd be watching little Muhammad with his books in his hand. Just picture the cute little boy with the books in his hand. Everybody else is playing soccer. He would come to the soccer field and either walk through it or around it and pass by it and not stop to play soccer, but instead continue to the masjid of Sheikh Ar-Rahmaan ibn Sa'di and attend his class and take the knowledge of Islam from there. And he did this day after day without being tempted from the beauty of the life of this world. He sacrificed it. Of course, we all need a little bit of the world, but it's too much of the world, that is maybe useless. So the Sheikh would sacrifice that. What the other youth loved doing, he sacrificed and he went and sought the knowledge of Allah's religion as a youth. And doing that day after day, his Sheikh died, Sheikh Abdul-Rahman ibn Sa'di died. And when he died, he realized that his best student was this boy, Muhammad ibn Uthaymeen. Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. And he appointed Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen to be the next Imam and the teacher of the masjid after he dies. And hence Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen became a leading person from there onwards. And before Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen died, even Sheikh ibn Baz, one of the leading scholars of the world of our time, and many people would say that he was the greatest scholar, even greater than Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen. But when people ask Sheikh ibn Baz, he would say that there is nobody alive under the sky today stronger in fiqh, or meaning understanding of the religion, than Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. This is a testimony from a great scholar of our time about Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen. How did he get there, brothers and sisters? It is from seeking knowledge, by sacrificing excessive pleasure of this worldly life. So I want to finish off there by reminding everybody that you are all, mashallah, tabarakallah, so young. Even if you are old, like me, I'm not that old, but a little bit old, right? Even if, no matter what your age is, it's not too late. Keep on seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion with the sheikhs, ustad, or whatever you call the scholars. Keep on seeking the knowledge of Allah's religion from the scholars so that you understand it properly. And maybe one day, maybe one talk you do, brothers and sisters, maybe Allah will make it famous on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever, where maybe 1 million people will listen to your talk and benefit good, beneficial knowledge of Islam and act upon it, and you will get the reward of 1 million people doing good deeds because of something you taught them. Can you imagine how much reward you could get because of that? And even if you did not do that lesson on YouTube, maybe you might have a child. I've got 2 sons and a daughter. Let's say my oldest son, Ismaeel, right? Maybe I teach my son Ismaeel. And then he goes on to become a scholar. I teach my son Ismaeel, or my wife teaches him. It could be a brother or a sister, dad or mom. We teach, it's important to seek the knowledge for both brothers and sisters. We teach our son, Ismaeel, that knowledge of Allah's religion. And maybe he will grow up to become that scholar of Islam, and his knowledge spreads to 1 million people on the internet. Beneficial knowledge, not rubbish knowledge. Beneficial knowledge to 1 million people on the internet. And the 1 million people act on it. Our son is spreading that knowledge, but we inspired him as mum and dad. We worked and gave him money so he could study the religious knowledge. And now every knowledge that he teaches, the mum and dad, we get the reward of it if we did that. So brothers and sisters, wallahi, don't consider that it is ever too late. Seek the knowledge of all of this. And if it's not your child, then maybe your nephew, niece, or somebody else. Help them. Be the Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen of tomorrow. Be the Abdullah ibn Abbas in knowledge of tomorrow. We'll never be as great as the scholars, but maybe we can, even if we get even 1/4 the way, that's quite an achievement. So I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all the success, to be those who follow these great people, seeking the knowledge of Islam and spreading it to the people and bringing blessings upon everybody and ourselves in this life and paradise. Jazakumullahu Khayr. And thank you to all of you for having me here as well. And I was telling the brothers before that one thing I'm well known for is I can talk forever. And now, hey, look, it's 9:45. So there you go. Okay. Jazakumullahu Khayr. Alaykum Wa-Rahmatullahi Wa-Barakatuh.
When we attend an Ilm Majlis, when we get a reward, do we get the same reward when we watch a YouTube video for example, a live stream video, do we get the same reward of attending face to face?
I remember Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioning that, you know, it's better to seek the knowledge in person. It's better to seek the knowledge in person. But if you could not get that, then he said that using these modern means, such as, you know, audio cassettes. In the days of Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, audio cassettes were the modern means. Now it's YouTube. So he said, you know, even that will still help you to get the knowledge. So, you know, understanding from that, what I would understand is, if you are seeking the knowledge from YouTube, that is still rewarding. It's still reward of seeking the knowledge. But, so you hopefully you'll still get the reward of seeking the knowledge, but there is another reward, which is to go to the place of seeking the knowledge, and that reward, from what I understand, will be missing. So as you know, the Prophet also mentioned, like, you know, no people come to the, you know, house from one of the houses of Allah, gather together to read Quran and learn the Quran. Because the Prophet in that hadith, he even says, not just reading Quran, he says, وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ بَيْنَهُم. They are reading, they're studying it between them. So to come and study, except, as you know, the Prophet says that the mercy descends on them, the angels come, the mercy descends, tranquility surrounds them. So, and then they are mentioned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all this shows to us the excellence of actually going to seek the knowledge live with a person. Then there are other hadith as well, as you know, where the Prophet says that, you know, when a person goes out to seek the knowledge, the angels lower their wings for that seeker of the knowledge, right? And then there's another hadith where the Prophet says, whenever you go to seek the knowledge, Allah will make a path to paradise easy for you. So some of this reward, and I'm saying some, that is about going to seek the knowledge, what I understand is that is about when you go to seek the knowledge live and learn from a person. As for the reward of learning of Allah's religion, hopefully you get that reward whether you read a book, watch a YouTube, or anything else where you do it. And Allah knows best. But again, I cannot emphasize enough, brothers and sisters, that it really is very good to come and seek the knowledge in a live gathering. And also, as you know, if you, for example, if you come here, now if you come to seek the knowledge, let's say one brother comes to seek the knowledge, then other friends will say, hey, my friend is coming, I'll come to seek the knowledge as well. Then he comes, then his friends will say, he's coming, I'll go as well. But then, on the other hand, if they say, oh, sister, are you coming? And the sister says, oh, no, I'm not going. They say, oh, the other sister, are you going? Oh, no, I'm not going. Then they say, oh, well, look, she's not going. Then this sister says, oh, I won't go either. So it's very important for us to go, because when we come here to seek the knowledge, maybe we encourage others who are coming as a result of us to seek the knowledge as well. And we get the reward of their knowledge and our knowledge. So it's very important. Having said that, don't lose the opportunity today of seeking, you know, some inspiration and knowledge from YouTube videos or whatever else it is. You know, don't miss that. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. So don't do that. But always keep in touch. Always keep in touch with scholars who can help with difficult issues to understand.
Yeah, I've got a question. When you mentioned scholars, it's because of when we translate, right? So there's ulama, there is dai. So because of the translation, and also when we were speaking in English, maybe you say sheikh, or you say scholars. Do you really mean scholars as in ulama level, or is it dai level? And
Yes.
to be able to explain to us who is a
Yeah,
scholar?
that's a very good question the brother asked. He said, you know, like, do I mean scholars at the ulama level, or do I mean scholars at the da'iyah level? But I guess the answer I would give is, ask one of the big Sheikh Aslam ulama about that answer. Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. It requires a big, deep answer. So, you know, I don't know if I want to, you know, it'll maybe take too long to go into it. I guess maybe the brief answer I could give is, you know, scholars are at varying different levels. Scholars are at different levels. And what I've understood and learnt is, some people are ammatun nas, common people, and then there are the scholars. And then there are the tulab al-ilm in between, students of knowledge in between. So, common people, ammatun nas, the lay people, not common, the lay people. Lay people meaning they don't know anything about Islam, they love Allah, they love the Messenger, they're Muslims, but they don't know much more about Islam. Then there are the opposite, which is the high scholarly level. In between are the students of knowledge. In our time today, some people go to one extreme and they regard everybody as a scholar. Some people go to the other extreme and they regard nobody as a scholar. Right? To me, they're both extremes. Right? The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there will always be some people that will be showing the truth to the people. And as Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said, the truth can only be shown to the people by people who are qualified for it, meaning the scholars. So there will always be scholars in all time to come. But that's a different thing, we're getting off the topic. But the point is, what I've learnt is some of the great scholars of Usul al-Fiqh mention, and some of my teachers in Medina also mention, they said that giving fatwa, for example, it is at different levels. You give fatwa at different levels. What is fatwa? Fatwa is this halal, is this haram? Right? So you express an opinion from the evidences of the Quran and Sunnah, whether this is what Allah wants you to do or not. So some of the scholars said that, this is what, the giving fatwa is at different levels. One of the scholars who said that was Sheikh Muhammad Sa'ad al-Yubi, one of the great scholars of Usul al-Fiqh in Medina, who taught us there. And he quoted from some of the great scholars of Usul al-Fiqh of the past. So, as he mentioned, he said that the lowest level of giving fatwa is when a scholar gives fatwa on taqleed. Meaning that, and Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned, and Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen cited what Ibn Qayyim mentioned, that giving fatwa on taqleed should be, if there is nobody else who can give fatwa at a higher level, then it is permissible to do at the level of the taqleed. So what I'm trying to show here is giving fatwa at the level of taqleed is still giving fatwa. Right? So what does it mean giving fatwa at the level of taqleed? It means that somebody learned the fiqh inside out, and then they've learned what the great imams have said, and then when a new situation comes and somebody says, I passed wind in my prayer, but then again I normally pass wind all the time, so does that mean my wudu is broken or not? So now this person has learnt the fiqh, they're applying it to a situation. They're going to give fatwa based on the fatwa of a great scholar from before. This is fatwa on the level of taqleed. And Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said that when others are not available, this is allowed. So did Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah say. Then going back to what Sheikh Muhammad Sa'ad al-Yubi rahimahullah said, a level higher than this is, to give fatwa based on takhrij. Sorry, I made a mistake. Give fatwa based on tarjih. Sheikh Muhammad Sa'ad al-Yubi, who mentioned this, as I said, he's one of the great scholars of Usul al-Fiqh. He quoted this from one of the great scholars of Usul al-Fiqh, that's Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, who is a great scholar of Usul al-Fiqh. So, he said the second bottom level is to give fatwa tarjih. Tarjih means you know the opinion of one big scholar, another big scholar, another big scholar. So you take them and you see which one is rajih, which one is stronger. Because you see, these days, every brother says, in my view, that scholar's opinion is stronger. And that brother doesn't even know Arabic and doesn't know Usul al-Fiqh. And that is very wrong. That's very wrong. How can you say that, how can you say that an ijtihad matter is stronger opinion when you don't know Usul al-Fiqh with which you do ijtihad? Right? So, to do tarjih means you've learned at that level. And then this person gives fatwa at that level. Then a level higher than that is giving fatwa on takhrij. And takhrij means when there's no fatwa of a great scholar, you try to draw a fatwa based on similar ones. A level higher is to give fatwa based on the fatwa of an imam and so on in the madhab. A level higher is to give fatwa that is mutlaq, independent, right? So now, to give fatwa at the highest level is something that, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Al-Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Al-Awza'i, Imam Al-Layth ibn Sa'ad, and these scholars, they could give fatwa at their highest level. And then some of the other levels are the levels of some of the great scholars can do. Like Sheikh Aslam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, Sheikh ibn Baz rahimahullah, other scholars of, others. They give fatwa at one of those up levels. But the point I'm trying to say here is that if a person studied fiqh, usul al-fiqh, Arabic language, authenticity of hadith, and the meaning of the verses and hadith related to the ahkam, then Ibn Qudama rahimahullah says, and other scholars say, that this person can give a hukum or a fatwa at least at one of those levels. Do you see the point? So my point is that giving fatwa ability, it's like, you take a plane and you go above the clouds. Once you've reached the cloud, it's like you've reached the minimum level of fatwa. But is that the roof of the sky? No, the sky goes higher and higher and higher. So the ability of fatwa goes higher and higher and higher after that, until you get to the great imams and the sahaba and the tabi'een and so on. So giving fatwa is at different levels like this. And as a result, the scholars in the olden days, the ones who could give fatwa at least at one of the lesser levels, they would make them the qadi of a court, a judge of a court. But the ones who could give fatwa at a higher level were the big scholars who were like the Qadi al-Qudat or the Mufti or something like that. Mufti of the whole country. I mean, I know, for example, these days in some countries, Mufti is used even for people of a lesser level. But what I meant was, like in the olden days, there was like Mufti of one country. So the Mufti of Egypt, Mufti of Syria, Mufti of, basically some country like that. So the scholars are of different levels. And giving fatwa itself is of different level. Whether you call somebody an alim at that level or that level or that level is matter not to get in, that I don't want to talk about. That's something where some other scholars said some things about as well, but it will take us much longer to talk about it. But the point is, the name alim is not important. What is important is what the person can do. And that's why I like the terminology of ustad or sheikh, because then you don't need to worry about exactly determining which level somebody's at. The way I look at it is, if anybody can give fatwa at one of the acceptable levels, then that person I can go and ask them fatwa. That is the important thing. So I hope that that maybe helps in one way or another. It's a good question that the brother asked, and I think it's important because a lot of the youngsters these days, they say that we can give fatwa. They say nobody can give fatwa except big scholars, and yet they sit there and give their own verdicts all the time, and what they're essentially doing is giving big fatwa. And subhanAllah, when I was younger, before going to learn in the Islamic University of Medina, I was like that as well. May Allah forgive me, right? So in those days, I didn't know. So I would just take a book of hadith, read it, and I'll say, in my opinion, this is the fatwa. No, sorry, not fatwa. I would think I'm not giving fatwa. I don't realize I'm giving fatwa. I would say, in my opinion, this is a strong view. But that is essentially giving fatwa to the other people. This is the strong view. This is halal, this is haram. Then when I went to Medina, I learned that no, before you give fatwa, as Ibn Qudama rahimahullah and other scholars said, I hope you know Ibn Qudama, right? One of the great scholars of fiqh from before. As him and others said, to give fatwa, you need conditions. No usul al-fiqh, principles of fiqh, no mustalah al-hadith, authenticity of hadith, know the Arabic language, not Arabic, as they said, you don't need to know Arabic language at the level of Sibawayh or those kind of scholars, but at the level of a scholar who can understand the speech of Arabic. And to know the verses of the Quran that have to do with the ahkam. and the hadith that have to do with the ahkam, meaning the halal and haram. And as the scholars said, you don't need to memorize them, but you need to know them and their meaning. So then once you know these, it's at those 5 levels. So I hope we can realize this is not something I'm pulling out of my own pocket, but this is something that the great scholars have said. So I hope we realize, because I hope we can see that, you know, the truth that the scholars have said, it's not one extreme or the other extreme. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And it helps us to actually, you know, basically not, you know, do all kind of things that we shouldn't be doing. So I hope that helps. Did you want me to elaborate more or what? It's 10:02. I can go until 12 o'clock midnight if you want me to. Yeah. Basically, it's like the scholars said, brothers and sisters, wallahi, you know, when I went to Medina, you know, before I went to Medina, I used to read a lot. And I used to listen to the English-speaking sheikhs a lot. And then after I went to Medina, I thought, mashallah, you know, I thought, okay, I know a fair bit and I can learn a bit more. Then when I went to Medina, I realized that, oh my God, you know, there's a whole ocean and I'm just putting my feet into the beach in this side of the ocean. And then I realized, as I kept learning, I realized how much more I still need to learn. And as the scholars said, and I'm sure you've come across this before, as the scholars said, you know, you begin seeking the knowledge, you know, and like in the beginning levels, you kind of think like you don't know anything. Then you start learning, and then you think that, oh, now I know everything. Then you learn more, and then you realize, oh my God, I don't really know much at all, and I've got so much to learn. And that is when your seeking knowledge really begins. So that's why, and then some people, just to clarify one point, some people mentioned that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah was asked, you know, would somebody who's memorized 2 million hadith, a million hadith, would they be able to give their opinion? Somebody who's memorized 1 million hadith. So Imam Ahmad was not happy with that. So the person said, what about 2 million hadith? So Imam Ahmad, I can't remember now, either at 2 million or one after, he said, I hope so. So some people, based on this, they go on to say, you are not able to give fatwa until you know 2 million or 3 million hadith. You know, brothers and sisters, there are not even 3 million hadith out there. Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah mentioned that the hadith, Imam al-Dhahabi and some of the other scholars mentioned, they said that all the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they're about 10,000. They're about 10,000. The rest are just the chain of hadith repeating. So one, like for example, the first hadith of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that hadith, the scholars said, has 700 chains. One hadith, 700 chains. So the scholars count that hadith as 700 hadith. So in that way. Now Imam Ahmad was a scholar who would give the hukum on the authenticity of the hadith. So as a result, maybe he's talking about giving hukum on the authenticity of the hadith, that you need to know all these chains. But as the scholars mention, that after Imam Bukhari and other scholars that came, Imam Bukhari came after Imam Ahmad, then those who are giving the fiqh fatwa, not the hadith hukum, these people, for them, as the great scholars have said in the past, in Usul al-Fiqh and others, they said for them, they can give they can rely on the saying of Imam Bukhari and the scholars such as that. But as I said, this topic is a big topic, and I think we can't talk about the whole topic right now, but I wanted to mention enough because I see people going to one extreme or the others. Some people say there are no scholars in the world today, and they say then as a result, they give their own opinions, and they give very, very weird opinions that nobody has given in 1400 years. And they can go very, 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 really out of, what really the teachings of Islam are. So I was hoping that we don't go like that, saying there's no scholar and the only opinion is my opinion, and then khalas, and then after that, that's it. And then the other people are like, everybody's a scholar kind of thing. And that's not it either. So that's the reason I wanted to mention it a little bit briefly, and that's why I did. And I hope that was beneficial. Did that help in any way at all? Yeah. That's why I deliberately don't want to use the word alim, because the word alim, if you come, for example, in India, where I come from, the word alim is used in a very easy sense. But if you go to some other countries and some other people, the word alim is used only for the very big scholars. So the terminology is not what is that important. What is important is actually the person, what degree of ability they have. And Allah knows best. Jazakumullahu Khayr. I don't want to bore everybody and I don't want to put everybody to sleep. I hope that it was beneficial, and I pray that Allah makes us all like Abdullah ibn Abbas and Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen and these scholars and the knowledge they sought. I want to finish up with this, reminding us of these beautiful stories. So when we go to sleep, we remember these great scholars like Abdullah ibn Abbas and we dream about them tonight, inshallah. And tomorrow we wake up and say, I'm going to be a seeker of knowledge of Islam. Jazakallahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum wa fina.